Hi folks, this is Zulfi once again coming up with the news in a nutshell, video number 6. Today March 14th, Thursday 2019. Coming up with the latest news with little inspiration and humor. So let's begin. What's happening in America? Today the latest news just out is Senate voted against the President's proposal of declaration of national emergency for building up the wall against the southwest border of Mexico. The vote passed was 59 to 41, and with this, the Senate and also the House of Representatives, which had voted earlier 2 weeks ago, they sent a rebuking message to the White House and the President that they will not stand for any such thing of declaration of emergency for building up the wall. So now it has come on the desk. This bill will go on the desk of President Trump, on which Mr. Trump, after finding out the Senate vote, already tweeted just one word, that veto. So obviously he's going to veto this bill and he's going to seek funds to complete his declaration of national emergency and complete the wall, because the building of the wall is so important in his getting re-elected. He had promised in the beginning that he's going to build up a beautiful wall against the southwest border and he's going to make Mexico pay for the wall. Obviously, Mexico is not willing to pay for the wall and no such thing is happening. So now he has no choice but to say that he has to build up this wall. On Monday, March 11, 2019, President Trump and the White House proposed a new budget for the fiscal year 2019-2020, and this $4.7 trillion budget, they've increased 5% on the defense spending, and likewise similar amount 5% they have cut down on the management of health services, environmental protection agency services, and some services provided by the federal government. So increasing the defense budget by $750 billion to please the Pentagon and all the defense team, giving them a pay raise of 3% salary hike, which I think they deserve it. But other than that, the increase in the in the defense spending is such a waste of taxpayer dollars. I will just give you an example. The watchdog group, which monitors the spending of all the money that takes place of the federal government, in the last month of September 2018, there was $90 billion left in the budget. And in this 1 month alone, all these agencies had to spend the $90 billion. Otherwise, they have no reason to ask for more money for the coming up next year. So they found out that in the last month alone, in the month of September, all this money was spent, like $4 million in buying lobster tails, $1,200 coffee cups, and all this wasteful spending, because there's a simple rule: either you use it or lose it. So all these agencies who have the surplus money lying at the end of the fiscal year, which is September, they have to spend the money. If they do not spend the money, they cannot show the reason why they need more spending. And Pentagon, their job is just to put the fear in the president, in the Congress, in the American people, that if they do not get their budget, they will not be able to protect the country. So big deal, they have to do their job, but every year they want to increase in the spending 3%, 4%, 5%. Now this increase of money that we are giving it to the Pentagon is going to cost a deficit of almost $900 billion. That's close to $1 trillion. In the next 3 years, the deficit will be almost close to $1.2 trillion for the next 3 years. While getting elected, President Trump has promised that he's going to wipe out the deficit in 8 years, like 4 years of this term and the next coming 4 years. And he was going to wipe out the deficit. But unfortunately, right now, the way the budget's proposal is, it's not going to wipe out the deficit, and it's going to increase the deficit, which stands at $22 trillion. It's a simple example. Let's say you're managing a company or you're managing a house, And I'll give you a smaller example. We don't want to go into trillions of dollars and billions of dollars. If your yearly income is $10 million, you maintain a certain standard of living and you have to plan a budget for your family. Obviously, your children are pampered because you have high income. Your family is pampered. You live in a big house. You drive fancy cars. You visit the finest restaurants. When you fly, fly first class. But it's not a brainer that you cannot manage your budget in $10 million worth of income. Similarly, Mr. Trump, coming from a business background, I had high hopes in him that he's going to balance the budget every time. He's going to reduce the deficit, which is very much needed, because what are we leaving for our next generation? All these deficits. And come to think of it, the Wall Street, which has been going in high gear for so long, we haven't had a break in the Wall Street and a slump since 2008 or 2009. I think a correction is due also. So economy wise, no wonder we might be thinking that Wall Street is doing good. The Dow Jones is doing good right now. The unemployment is at its lowest. But this kind of management of fiscal responsibility is going to put us in a bigger hole for the next generation. So we have to watch out what we are doing. And unfortunately, that's what we are doing. A lot of times we are ending up wasting the money. And we keep doing this. Also, the other news is unfortunate for the Ethiopian Airlines to have crashed, killing all the 159 passengers on board. Boeing 737 MAX 8. The same kind of accident happened in Indonesia about 5 months ago in October. And with this, all the Boeing 737 has been grounded. America was the last FAA, declared the last of the countries to ground the Boeing. Unfortunate for the Boeing company that this accident happened, and unfortunate for all the people who lost their lives. So this is coming up with the latest news. Now let's say, how can we make our lives a little bit better? So I'm gonna say is do some charity every day. If you cannot even do any kind of charity, at least say a kind word to somebody and bring a smile on somebody's face. Now a lot of times we are so much busy with our life that by default we tend to have an attitude of not being happy all the time. I'm going to show you a secret today where if you have just 3 things in life, you're going to be happy and you will have the world at your feet. First is, if you have sustenance for 24 hours, that is food, shelter and clothing for 24 hours, which is quite simple. A lot of people, everyone has clothing, everyone has guaranteed food for 24 hours, and most of the people have shelter. Majority of the people. So with these 3, basic necessities are covered for 24 hours. You don't got to think beyond for next day or the next week or the next month or the next year. Just think about the 24 hours. So if you are blessed with all these 3 things, food, shelter and clothing, that's one, the whole club together, you are already blessed. The second thing, if you have good health, so good health is very much necessary. You have to work on your health, like take care of your health, go to sleep, catch proper sleep. We're going to go into this detail next week in our next weekly news. And the third thing is, if you are at peace with everybody in this life, beginning with your parents, your spouse, your brother, your sister, your uncle, your auntie, your neighbors, your local government, your city government, your state government and your government, the country that you live in, if you are at peace with everyone, then most likely you will have the world at your feet and you can be happy. The first thing that I said, we have the food, shelter and clothing, which puts us in a peace of mind, and it shows us and gives us a lesson that not to think about tomorrow. Because if you go to think in the reverse, didn't you have food yesterday? Didn't you have proper clothing yesterday? Didn't you have a shelter over your head? So if you had it yesterday, if you had a week before, a month before and year before, obviously the system runs such that you have to think only for the next 24 hours. Do not go into think about too much. and that's gonna put you in a state of disappointment and too much botheration and worry, and that's not good for you and not good for the health also. Now, talking about some humor, I'm talking about the days when there used to be phone booth. Nowadays everyone has a cell phone. So one guy is talking on the phone, he's holding the phone, and outside the booth there's another guy waiting to use the pay phone, public phone. So this guy is holding the phone 5 minutes, 10 minutes, he's not saying a word. So the guy outside tells him that, please, you're just holding the phone, I want to use the phone, I want to make a quick phone call. The guy said, don't you see I'm talking to my wife? So that's the way you talk to your wife. You don't talk much, but you listen. I said in my previous video also, if all the wives want to have a happy husband, just try to understand your husband. Even if you don't love him to death, it's fine. You try to understand him, understand his feelings, and you will have a happy wife. And for all the husbands, love your wife to death. Bring her flowers, say how much you care for her, how much you love her, and make her happy all the time, and never ever try to understand her. So that's it for this week. Looking forward to see you guys all again next week. From Zulfi Ali, thank you and bye-bye.